Hello. Yes, it's me, Jazza, your favourite politically engaged queer from the internet. Now, I am aware it has been a while since I have made anything on this here website, and for that I can only apologise. I have been partaking in self-care, seeing as things seem to have gone a little bit crazy recently. I've been trying to get back into the art scene. I think it's a penis. And I've also spent some time being freaked out by the underside of my own tongue. But sometimes we just have to put self-care aside a little bit and re-engage with the world as it's about to fall apart. You may have noticed that there is a general election happening in the United Kingdom for us to decide how to move forward with Brexit, but also for us to be able to figure out who's going to govern the country for the next 5 years. And there's so much happening that I really just want it to stop. You guys know me, this stuff is usually catnip for me. How many political videos have I made? I've got a bloody political podcast, and I mean, good luck if you follow me on Twitter. But this time around, and I cannot be the only person who feels like this, I am just so unimpressed with absolutely bloody anybody who has ended up in the position where they're running for any kind of particular office. And I just want it to end. I'm like, you know what, maybe authoritarian dictatorship isn't that bad. Maybe, you know what, let's move to China where there is no politics. It's just... I just want it to stop. Now, I know this is the internet, so this is probably going to be watched by a large number of Jez We Can, Corbynister, Vote Labour fans. Hello, welcome to the channel. However, it is quite clear what is actually the motivation behind this election being called by our new Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. That's never going to get easy to say. So if we look at the polling of Boris Johnson's approval ratings, it doesn't look like he's doing that well. He's hovering around 0% net approval from -5 to +5. It doesn't seem like the best thing. And then you scroll down to Jeremy Corbyn and his approval ratings, and oh dear, oh God. Well, you see why Boris Johnson would quite like to pick a fight now, can't you? Brexit is also obviously at the forefront of this election, and I think that Boris Johnson is probably banking on a lot of people feeling like me, where I love the EU, I want to remain very badly, but also I kind of just want this nightmare to end. And even though that's a fallacy, and even though us voting for the Conservatives and putting the Boris Johnson's party in power with a majority so that they can pass his bill, doesn't make Brexit stop, just means we start the next phase and then go into possibly years and years and years, maybe even a decade of trade negotiations with the European Union. The fallacy of just get Brexit done, I've got to be honest, it even works a little bit for me. But then I remember how bloody important this is. The phrase, the election of our generation, is thrown around too much. We love bloody hyperbole in our media discourses these days. But this really is the final nail in the coffin when it comes to the direction that the country goes for the next few years, not just because of Brexit, but also because of all of the other wide-ranging policies, when it comes to stuff like immigration, when it comes to stuff like benefits, when it comes to stuff like the way that we interact with the NHS. This is a super, super important election. Now, when we look at public intent when it comes to who they're going to vote for on a national level, like the polls of polls, the BBC has a really good tracker on this. We scroll down, and mate, it looks if you don't want Brexit to happen and you're not a fan of the Conservatives, it looks like a little bit shite at the moment. At the moment, we've got the Tories on about 41%, Labour about 10 points, actually 12 points behind them. Labour plus Lib Dems together actually pushes this over the edge, but that is... like 41% is more than enough to get a majority in our election system. And it looks like everybody just wants this to bloody end. And that sucks. However, that election system that I hate so much, just to be really clear, may actually be our saving grace when it comes to this election if you want to stop the Conservatives from getting in, and if you want to stop Brexit from happening. I prompted you lot to ask me questions that you may want answered on the general election on the World Wide Web. And Shabba got back to me. Love Shabba. Big fan of Shabba. She asked, should people vote with Brexit as a priority? How should Remainers find out how to tactically vote? And then just how to vote in general, tactically or for the party you genuinely believe in? Shabba. Great question. Big fan. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're registered to vote. If you haven't yet, you are a silly, silly sausage, and you're costing it quite fine. But all you need to do, it's very simple. Follow Uncle Jazza here. You go www.google.com. You type in register to vote. Look, I've already done it on my little telephone. There we go. You scroll down a little bit. You go to gov.uk, where you register to vote, and it takes you literally 5 minutes from there. Please do it. Even if you think you're already registered to vote, just do this just to make sure. If you haven't received your polling card yet, then definitely register to vote again in the place where you are going to be on election day. Please, for goodness sake, make sure you're registered, because the worst thing in the world is rocking up to the polling station and being like, oh, well, I didn't register, I'm not on the electoral thing, so I can't do it. That's what happens to your voice as well when you don't register. It's really bad. Even if you're like, bugger it, I hate all of these people, I'm not going to vote for any of them, the worst thing that could possibly happen is you making that decision, not making sure that you're registered to vote, and then within the next 2 weeks you change your mind. Then you're just not going to have the option to go and turn up and exercise your democratic right, for goodness sake. Do something that your future self is going to thank you for. Don't be like bloody Harry Lewis, who... Oh, what a frustrating little boy who is like, oh yeah, when one vote decides an election, then I'll actually register and actually vote. Don't be a bloody numpty. For goodness sake, it's all of us together. And then you have no right to actually bloody complain when things change. Don't be a Harry Lewis. # don't be a Harry Lewis. Register to vote. Ooh. The meat of Shabba's question was actually about voting tactically. Voting tactically is essentially not necessarily voting for your heart, even though that would be lovely if we had a different voting system, but voting in order to keep a particular party out. Now, very often, in tactical voting circles, this means keeping the Tories out. Now, there are many Tories that I like, and so I don't want to get into that partisan battle politics bullshit. But if you're like me and you'd quite like the option to be able to democratically reverse Brexit, then we need to make sure that the Conservatives get as few votes as possible. Okay, so what we need to do in order to do that, none of that partisan codswallop here, we go to www.google.com. Then we type in, not registered to vote this time, but best for Britain. Oh, look at them. There they are. Very good SEO, Best for Britain. So we go into vote Best for Britain. You scroll down to General Election, Voting Tactically. Go in here, and then you put in your postcode. Tells you also what constituency you're in, which is very handy. So if you put in a postcode there, it then takes you to, oh look, this is my postcode, this is my constituency. In order to vote for having a second referendum or voting pro-European, it says in this particular case that you should vote for Liberal Democrats. That's because they are the most likely party to beat the Conservatives in this seat. Voting for the Liberal Democrats in this area is the best chance of electing a pro-EU MP and stopping Brexit. And then it also shows you the breakdown of how people could vote and can vote. And you see, if Remainers voted tactically here, the Lib Dems would be pretty close to the seat. As an example, very often it will tell you to vote Labour because in more cases than not, Labour is in second place to the Conservatives. If you really care about voting tactically and about this one European issue, then using Best for Britain is a really good shout. Use it, share it, spread it around. Boom. I will say, this is just for people who really want to stop Brexit. And this is the really annoying thing about this election, is that it is not just an election about Brexit. We're voting on a general election. Who's going to run the country for the next 5 years? You have to use your own bloody conscience and do what's right for you. I know what I want. I want to stay in the EU. But if there are more important things close to your heart, then vote smartly for those things. These people are going to be running the country for the next 5 years. And yes, Brexit is a huge issue that is going to affect absolutely everything else. But you know what? You're only going to regret not voting, to be completely honest. It will take like 10-15 minutes out of your day on the 12th of December. And be as informed as you can. Use resources like Best for Britain. I'll leave a few more down below. I'm going to be making videos about the manifestos next week. Oh, look at me. 2 videos in 2 weeks. Cheeky. But honestly, don't miss out on this opportunity to not be ignored. They really want to ignore you. They really want to speak for all of Britain. They really want to speak for everybody. If they aren't actually speaking for you, make sure they know. I think that's all I have to say about this. Make sure you get bloody registered to vote, you spoon. Otherwise, I'll see you very soon to talk about policy, which we all love. Right, okay. I'm going to go now. Bye-bye. I'm very tired.